Years ago, when I first started into mental health, I was meeting a patient for the first time, and she was in my office, and I was starting to take her history, and she interrupted me very early in the conversation, and she said, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you. There are 3 people talking to me all at once, and I'm having trouble hearing you." Well, I had never heard anything like this before. This was completely foreign to me. And I know that you can get those symptoms with schizophrenia and psychosis, but I knew this lady didn't have either of those problems. So I thought, what is going on? And how am I going to get through this interview with her listening to these 3 other people? So I was writing down her medication list on my chart, and I was thinking to myself, what is this? I wonder if it's spiritual. So I didn't know anything about spiritual issues of that nature. So I spoke to God in my mind, and I said, God, I have no idea what's going on, but if this is spiritual, and if she's hearing from spirits, could you shut them up so I could get on with my interview? So then I looked up from my notes to ask my next question, and her eyes were just bugging out. And she said to me, "What did you just do?" And I said, "Well, I was just writing down your medication list." She said, "No, you did something." I said, "What makes you think I did something other than write down your medication list?" She said, "They stopped talking." And I said, "Well, don't they periodically stop talking? Wouldn't this be a random event anyway?" She said, "No, they've never stopped talking to me for 12 years. So I said, "Why did they stop talking to you?" She said, "They're afraid of you. What did you do?" Well, afraid of me. Well, I was the most surprised person in the room because I didn't know anything about spirits. I didn't know anything about authority, but the spirits obeyed even though I didn't know anything about authority. And I think this is what's happened. I think I sent a prayer up to God. An angel dropped down through the ceiling and said to the spirits, "Shut up," and then went back up. And so I was able to continue with my interview. But I learned some really important lessons. I learned that I had more authority than I was aware of, and Satan yielded to that authority. So that told me that every believer has authority regardless of how you feel or what you already know about authority, and that you have far more authority than you're aware of. Now you're going to say, how is that possible? That you could have that much authority if you haven't been trained in it, you don't have any experience in it? Because your authority is not based on your knowledge or experience. It's based on who you are, not what you know. You see, you're a son and daughter of the Most High God. That gives you authority by birthright into the kingdom, and it's not dependent on what you know. And remember too, in Ephesians chapter 2, it says that our spirits are seated with Christ in heaven. Well, that's where all the authority is. And so we have access to all the authority of heaven, and it's just waiting for us to use. So how can you use this kind of authority? Let's get practical. Now, there are many ministries that use authority for deliverance, inner healing, and those kinds of things. But let's talk about something that every one of us can use right away today. Satan loves to put his thoughts into your mind. That's his #1 method of attack on humans. He wants to feed you lies that he thinks you'll believe. He wants to tempt you into sin. He wants to get you angry and upset. He loves to drop his thoughts into your mind and hope that you bite at the bait and overreact. So here's a very powerful tool, a spiritual warfare prayer of authority, to stop that and block that attack. So the next time you get an invading thought that's just designed to get you angry or to tempt you to sin or to get you upset in some way, you personalize it. You recognize that this thought's coming from outside. It's not your own thought, that you're under attack by a sinister force. And so you personalize it and you speak right to it in your mind. You don't have to do this out loud. I know what you're trying to do to me. You have no power over me. I refuse to agree or give in to what you're saying, and I send you to the foot of the cross for disposal. But then here's the most important and powerful part of this prayer, is then you turn to Jesus and say, "Jesus, what do you want me to know about this situation? Or what thoughts do you want me to have to replace the bad thoughts?" And those are the thoughts you start to dwell on. So that's a practical way. In fact, I know a lot of my clients, they actually take that very short prayer and they put it on their phone so they can grab it for emergencies as many times a day as they need to. And I will reproduce that prayer below this video in the text part of this page, so you can copy it down and use it all the time. So the bottom line is, you have more authority than you're aware of, and it's time to start using it in very practical ways even today. So now I want to hear from you. How have you used your spiritual authority in the past, and what happened. Just leave your testimony in the box below because we want to share in your experience. It will encourage others. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form on this page. And I'll talk to you again next week. But this week, start to use your authority. Fight back.